Medal of Honor.
Rambo did bring out a darker side of me.
Have you ever wondered why the most dangerous man in cinema history chose a humble dirt bike over something far more powerful? What if Rambo's Yamaha was hiding secrets so deep that even dedicated franchise historians never uncovered them? These are 20 weird facts about Rambo's Yamaha dirt bike that will completely blow your mind. Number 20. The Yamaha XT 250 was chosen because it was nearly invisible. The production team behind First Blood in 1982 faced a specific challenge when selecting Rambo's dirt bike for the Pacific Northwest sequences. They needed a motorcycle that would blend into the forest environment so completely that audiences focused entirely on Stallone rather than the machine beneath him. The Yamaha XT 250 was selected not for its performance credentials or technical specifications, but because its relatively slim profile and modest visual presence made it almost disappear against dense woodland backgrounds on standard 35mm film stock. Director of photography Andrew Laszlo specifically requested a bike that would not compete visually with the surrounding trees during chase sequences. Several more aggressive-looking motorcycles were tested against the location backgrounds and rejected because they drew too much attention in camera tests. The XT 250's neutral color tones and unimposing silhouette proved ideal. What nobody anticipated was how poorly this choice would work against the production's marketing team afterward. You cannot put a motorcycle chosen specifically for its invisibility on a promotional poster and expect anybody to notice it. The XT 250 became famous for being the bike nobody initially paid attention to, which was precisely the point from the very beginning. Number 19. Stallone refused a stunt double for the first major riding sequence. Sylvester Stallone's insistence on performing his own work wherever physically possible is well documented across his career. What is considerably less known is the specific confrontation this created during the First Blood motorcycle sequences in British Columbia. The production's insurance underwriters had formally prohibited Stallone from riding the Yamaha during any sequence involving speeds above a specifically calculated threshold. Stallone rejected this restriction entirely and made his position clear to director Ted Kotcheff, leaving no room for negotiation. The first major woodland riding sequence was filmed with Stallone genuinely aboard the XT 250 for portions, but the insurance documentation was later recorded as never having occurred. The production solution was logistical rather than confrontational. Certain camera setups were scheduled on days when the insurance supervisor was occupied elsewhere on the production. The second unit coordinator managed the scheduling with what multiple crew members later described as considerable creative ingenuity. Stallone completed several genuine riding passes through the British Columbia forest that technically violated his contract's physical activity clauses. The footage from those passes appears in the finished film. Nobody involved ever formally acknowledged which specific shots feature Stallone versus his assigned double. The ambiguity was entirely deliberate and has never been resolved through any official production statement. At number 18, the Yamaha was repainted 3 times before filming began.
This is it, First Blood. That's the bike.
Before a single frame of First Blood was exposed, the picture bike designated as the principal hero motorcycle underwent 3 complete paint removal and reapplication cycles. The first color applied was a standard Yamaha factory finish in the period-correct specification for the XT 250. Director Ted Kotcheff reviewed it against location photographs from the British Columbia shoot and rejected it immediately. The factory color read too cleanly on camera, giving the bike a showroom appearance that contradicted the worn, survivalist aesthetic the production was building around Rambo's character. The second application used a custom mixed flat finish designed to age the bike visually. Kotcheff rejected this as well, arguing that it now looked artificially distressed and read as a costume rather than genuine wear. The third application was a collaborative effort between the art department and the transportation coordinator, involving multiple layered tones applied in sequence with selective sanding between coats. This version was approved The entire process consumed 11 days of pre-production time and a budget allocation that the transportation department had to quietly absorb from other line items to avoid drawing attention. The final color that appears on screen is therefore not a single paint application, but a carefully constructed illusion of accumulated history built from 3 separate failed attempts underneath. Number 17. The bike used in Rambo: First Blood. Part 2 was a different model. When the franchise moved into its second chapter with Rambo: First Blood Part 2 in 1985, the production faced a continuity decision that was resolved in the most pragmatic and least cinematic way imaginable.
The Yamaha XT250 that appeared in the original film was no longer in production at the time of First Blood. Yamaha had updated the model line during the intervening years, and the revised version looked sufficiently different on camera to create visible continuity problems if placed directly beside surviving reference footage from the first film. The production quietly substituted a different Yamaha model that more closely matched the original's on-screen appearance while being a mechanically updated and completely distinct machine. This substitution was never disclosed in any production documentation made available to the press. Marketing materials for the sequel referred to the Yamaha generically, without specifying the model designation, which effectively concealed the switch from anyone not closely examining the technical specifications. Motorcycle journalists reviewing the film noted the discrepancy in specialist publications at the time, but their observations never reached mainstream entertainment coverage. The general audience continued to believe they were watching the same model in both films. Continuity had been preserved entirely through strategic vagueness, rather than through any genuine attempt to source matching equipment. Number 16. A second unit rider broke 2 ribs, completing a shot that lasted 4 seconds on screen. Among the motorcycle stunt work performed during First Blood's British Columbia production, one specific shot required more physical cost than any other sequence in the entire film. The shot in question lasts approximately 4 seconds in the finished cut and shows the bike navigating a particularly severe downhill section between dense tree lines. The second unit stunt rider assigned to the sequence completed it successfully on the 3rd attempt. What the production records show, and what no press material from the period acknowledged, was that the first attempt resulted in a low-speed fall on the approach that the rider completed without stopping, carrying 2 fractured ribs through the remaining portion of the run rather than halting to seek medical attention. His reasoning, explained afterward to the stunt coordinator, was that stopping would have required resetting the entire sequence and would have lost the available light for that shooting day. He calculated that the injury was painful but structurally manageable for a single additional pass. He was correct. The second attempt failed due to unrelated camera issues. The 3rd attempt produced the usable footage. The rider was taken directly from the set to a medical facility after the 3rd pass was confirmed acceptable. His 4 seconds of screen time cost him 6 weeks of recovery. Number 15. Yamaha never officially acknowledged the First Blood Association for nearly a decade.
From Daytona to Le Mans. In fact, Yamaha...
When First Blood became a global box office phenomenon in 1982, the obvious commercial response from Yamaha would have been immediate and aggressive promotion of their motorcycle's role in one of the year's biggest films. That response never came. Yamaha's American marketing division made a deliberate corporate decision to distance the brand from the film's association, rather than embrace it. The reasoning was rooted in the film's content, rather than its commercial performance. First Blood is fundamentally a film about a traumatized Vietnam veteran in violent conflict with American law enforcement. Yamaha's marketing team in the early 1980s was carefully positioning the XT series as a family-accessible recreational vehicle suitable for weekend trail riding. Associating that product identity with a psychologically damaged fugitive destroying a small American town was considered commercially counterproductive, regardless of how many tickets the film sold. Internal Yamaha marketing documents from the period
portions of which have since been cited in motorcycle industry historical analyses, show the association was actively managed rather than promoted. Dealers who attempted to create First Blood-themed promotional materials using Yamaha's official branding were quietly discouraged. The brand only began publicly acknowledging the connection in the early 1990s, when the franchise's cultural status had shifted sufficiently to make the association commercially desirable rather than problematic. Number 14. The jungle sequences in Rambo, First Blood. Part 2 required entirely different tire compounds.
Nightclubs, you know? So right into behind Acapulco on the beach.
The production shift from the Pacific Northwest forests of First Blood to the Southeast Asian jungle environments of Rambo. First Blood Part 2 created immediate and serious mechanical challenges for the motorcycle preparation team. The surface conditions encountered during location work in Mexico, which doubled for Vietnam throughout the production, behaved in ways that were fundamentally incompatible with the tire specifications the transport department had initially shipped from the United States. Mexican jungle floor surfaces combined loose organic matter with unpredictable moisture levels and embedded rock fragments in proportions that destroyed standard dirt bike tires at a rate the transport coordinator described as genuinely alarming during the first week of location work. The tires were consuming themselves at approximately 3 times the rate the department had budgeted for across the entire shoot. An emergency procurement process identified a locally available compound with different durometer characteristics that handled the specific surface conditions considerably more effectively. The replacement tires looked visually different from the originally specified units, creating continuity problems between sequences filmed on different days. The continuity supervisor's records show repeated notes about tire appearance discrepancies that the editor was eventually asked to manage in post-production by minimizing close tire proximity shots across problematic sequence joins. Number 13. The Hero. Bike was stolen from the production lot during filming. Midway through the principal photography of First Blood in British Columbia, the designated Hero motorcycle, the primary picture bike used for all close-up and dialogue adjacent sequences, was stolen from the secured production lot overnight. The theft occurred during a period when the production was operating from a base camp near Hope, British Columbia, and represented a logistical crisis of the first order. The Hero bike featured specific cosmetic modifications, custom wear patterns, and carefully applied surface treatments that had taken weeks to develop and could not be replicated quickly. Production was scheduled to resume the following morning, with sequences that specifically required the Hero bike's distinctive appearance. The transportation coordinator spent the night sourcing the closest available matching replacement from every contact he could reach across British Columbia and into Washington state. The replacement bike required emergency cosmetic work overnight to bring its appearance close enough to the stolen machine to pass camera scrutiny. It never quite matched. Careful examination of First Blood reveals subtle visual inconsistencies in the Hero bike's appearance that clearly divide between sequences filmed before and after the theft date. The stolen original was recovered by police approximately 3 weeks after production, wrapped in British Columbia, by which point it was no longer needed. Number 12. Stallone requested a specific engine sound that Yamaha's actual motor could not produce. During post-production on First Blood, Sylvester Stallone reviewed early sound cuts of the motorcycle sequences. He raised a concern with the sound design team that created significant additional work across several weeks. The actual recorded sound of the Yamaha XT250's engine was, in Stallone's assessment, insufficiently threatening for the character operating it. The XT250 is a modest single-cylinder trail bike producing a sound profile that accurately reflects its practical, utilitarian nature. Stallone wanted something that communicated danger and barely contained aggression. He described the sound he wanted in terms that the sound design team privately acknowledged were incompatible with what a standard production Yamaha trail bike could physically produce. The solution required constructing a composite engine sound from recordings of at least 4 motorcycles with different displacement and character profiles. Components from a larger displacement, 2-stroke, a high-revving 4-stroke single, and 2 additional unidentified sources were blended by the sound team into a final composite that satisfied Stallone, while remaining unrecognizable as anything a real Yamaha XT250 would produce. Every motorcycle sound you hear throughout First Blood is therefore a fiction. The bike on screen and the sound attributed to it in the soundtrack are completely unrelated. Number 11. The production owned only one functional bike for the majority of filming. For most of principal photography on First Blood, the production's transportation department operated with a single fully functional motorcycle available for filming at any given time. Budget constraints during the British Columbia shoot meant that the contingency vehicles standard on larger productions were simply not funded. The transportation coordinator managed this situation by maintaining the single hero bike with extraordinary care and scheduling all motorcycle sequences to minimize the risk of mechanical failure, leaving the production without any rideable unit. The precariousness of this arrangement became genuinely critical on 2 separate occasions during filming. The first involved a mechanical failure that the transportation team resolved overnight by sourcing parts from a civilian Yamaha dealer in Hope. The second involved damage sustained during a rehearsal pass, requiring the bike to be trailered to Vancouver for specialist repair work, which cost the production an entire unplanned shooting day. The second unit director restructured the following day's schedule around sequences that did not require the motorcycle. Still, the reorganization created downstream scheduling complications that compressed the remaining motorcycle work into a shorter window than originally planned. The entire motorcycle component of First Blood was therefore filmed under conditions of constant potential crisis, yet the finished film gives absolutely no indication of this whatsoever. Number 10. The bike's handlebars were customized to accommodate Stallone's unusual riding posture. Sylvester Stallone's physical build created a specific ergonomic problem for the motorcycle preparation team on First Blood, which required custom fabrication before filming could begin. Stallone's shoulder width and arm length combination produced a riding posture on the stock Yamaha XT250 that the stunt coordinator identified as potentially problematic during initial camera tests. The standard handlebar configuration forced Stallone into a position that looked visually cramped and slightly awkward on camera, undermining the aggressive physical authority the character required. More critically, the stunt coordinator was concerned that the posture reduced Stallone's actual control over the bike during low-speed technical maneuvers through the forest sequences. A custom handlebar assembly was fabricated by the transportation department's workshop, widening the grip position and adjusting the rise to place Stallone's arms in a configuration that both looked correct on camera and gave him improved mechanical leverage over the steering. The modification required corresponding adjustments to the brake and clutch cable lengths and repositioning of the hand controls. The finished custom assembly was built to look indistinguishable from a stock unit on camera. Motorcycle specialists examining high-resolution stills from the production have subsequently identified the non-standard handlebar configuration, but it went entirely unnoticed in mainstream coverage for decades. Number 9. Scenes involving the bike and water were almost entirely performed by a non-riding double. The river and creek crossing sequences in First Blood are among the most visually striking moments in the film's wilderness chase. They also show some of the sequences in which Sylvester Stallone is least visible on the motorcycle. Water crossings created a specific combination of risks that the production's safety team assessed as unacceptable for the principal actor, regardless of his personal preferences on the subject of stunt doubles. The unpredictability of natural water movement over submerged rock surfaces made fall probability calculations essentially unreliable. A standard dirt fall on forest soil carries manageable injury parameters. A fall at crossing speed into a rock-bottomed British Columbia creek carries parameters nobody on the production was prepared to accept for their lead actor. The double assigned to the water sequences was selected not for physical resemblance to Stallone, but for exceptional technical ability in wet terrain conditions. He had a competition background in observed trials riding, a discipline that develops precise low-speed balance across unpredictable natural surfaces. His skill level was sufficiently beyond standard stunt riding that the coordinator specifically recruited him for this production from outside the regular stunt community. Stallone filmed the sections approaching and departing the shore. Everything between belonged to his trial riding replacement. Number 8. The Yamaha's fuel tank was modified to carry a hidden practical function on set.
And what they did there on the bike, how they made it jump that high. And
The fuel tank on the First Blood Hero bike underwent an internal modification during pre-production that served a purpose entirely unrelated to carrying fuel. The production special effects team required a reliable method for delivering a small quantity of controlled fluid to the bike's exterior surface during sequences in which Rambo and the machine needed to appear wet from creek crossings or rain exposure, without the production having to wait for genuine precipitation or repeatedly submerge the bike. The tank's internal volume was partially reduced by installing a secondary sealed bladder containing a water and glycerin mixture that the effects team had determined photographed most convincingly as natural moisture on both metal and clothing surfaces. A discrete valve and thin tube routing ran from this bladder to specific exterior points on the bike's bodywork. A crew member could trigger a controlled release between takes, distributing the wetting mixture across predetermined surface areas to maintain consistent moisture continuity across multiple shooting days. The modification was entirely invisible externally. The bike's fuel system was routed around the bladder and operated completely normally. The transportation coordinator's records list the modification under a deliberately vague description that would mean nothing to anyone not directly involved in its installation and operation. Number 7. Yamaha's competition department quietly contributed technical support without corporate approval.
Honestly, it's an amazing experience. It doesn't feel that much different.
The support that Yamaha's official corporate structure declined to provide for First Blood's production found its way onto the set through an entirely unofficial channel that bypassed the brand's marketing and communications departments. Several engineers within Yamaha's American competition and motorsport division were personal enthusiasts of the project. They provided informal technical assistance to the production's transportation team through private communications on channels that operated entirely outside any corporate awareness. This support included advice on specific mechanical preparation techniques for the Pacific Northwest terrain conditions, guidance on preventative maintenance scheduling for the demanding filming workload, and on one occasion, the discreet provision of a specific component that was not commercially available through standard dealer channels at the time it was needed. The engineers involved clearly understood that their assistance was not sanctioned by their employer and proceeded accordingly. None of it was documented in any official Yamaha record. The transportation coordinator who received this assistance acknowledged it years later in an interview with a specialist motorcycle publication, carefully avoiding naming the individuals involved to protect their professional positions. The unofficial support contributed meaningfully to keeping the production's single functional hero, bike operational through a schedule that would have challenged a better resourced transportation department operating with full manufacturer backing. Number 6. The bike that appeared in Rambo 3 was sourced from a private collection in Thailand. When production on Rambo 3 moved into its principal location, work during 1987, the transportation department encountered an immediate sourcing problem that nobody had adequately anticipated during pre-production planning. The Afghan Mujahideen setting required motorcycles that read as period and regionally appropriate for Central Asian conflict environments. The Yamaha models needed for the production were not available through standard commercial channels in the quantities and specifications required within the compressed procurement timeline under which the production was operating. A location contact in Thailand
identified a private collector who had amassed a significant collection of Yamaha models originally used by various regional military and paramilitary organizations across Southeast Asia in previous decades. The collector negotiated a rental arrangement rather than an outright sale, which required the production to return the bikes at the end of filming in the same or better condition than they were received. This created an unusual obligation for a production that routinely subjected its vehicles to treatment that left them in dramatically worse condition than when they arrived. The transportation coordinator assigned a team member whose sole responsibility was to monitor the condition of the collector's bikes throughout filming to ensure the return obligation could be met. 2 bikes were returned, requiring significant restoration work, the cost of which the production absorbed quietly without dispute. Number 5, First Blood's ending, almost featured the Yamaha in a sequence that was completely filmed and then destroyed. Among the most significant pieces of lost First Blood footage is a complete motorcycle sequence that was filmed during principal photography, edited into the cut, screened at test screenings, and then removed and physically destroyed as part of the decision to restructure the film's ending substantially. The sequence in question followed Rambo's post-confrontation resolution and involved the Yamaha in a departure scene that the original ending required for narrative continuity. When the ending was reconceived in response to the test screening, the motorcycle sequence became narratively disconnected from the new conclusion and was removed. Studio policy at the time supported the physical destruction of excised footage from sensitive productions, rather than retention in the archive, reflecting concerns about content control that were standard practice during the period. The sequence was destroyed along with other removed material from the original cut. Several crew members who were present at the test screenings where this version was shown have described the motorcycle sequence in sufficient detail to confirm it existed and was substantially complete rather than merely conceptual. No frame of it survives in any known archive. The exact content remains a matter of crew recollection rather than verifiable documentation, making it one of the more tantalizing pieces of missing action cinema from that era. Number 4, the stunt team developed a completely new fall technique, specifically for the forest terrain. The specific combination of terrain conditions encountered during First Blood's British Columbia location's work presented the stunt team with a falling and crashing scenario that existing techniques did not adequately address. Standard dirt bike fall methodology had been developed primarily for motocross and desert racing environments, where surface consistency, while rough, was broadly predictable across a given area. The Pacific Northwest forest floor was fundamentally different. The combination of moss-covered rocks, exposed root networks, soft organic matter pockets, and unpredictable gradient changes created a surface where a fall could transition through 3 or 4 completely different conditions within a single body length. A technique that managed the initial impact correctly could place the rider in a worse position for the secondary impact than if they had approached the entire sequence differently from the start. The stunt coordinator worked with his team across several pre-production days at the actual location to develop a modified falling technique specifically calibrated for these conditions. The technique prioritized redirecting momentum toward the softer organic surface pockets rather than fighting the initial fall, accepting controlled secondary contact with harder surfaces in exchange for managing the most dangerous transition points. This location-specific technique was documented internally and has subsequently been referenced in specialist stunt training contexts as an example of terrain adaptive methodology development. Number 3, the franchise's most famous bike shot was achieved with the engine completely switched off. The single most reproduced and widely recognized image of the Yamaha from the First Blood franchise, appearing in promotional materials, DVD covers, and retrospective documentary coverage across 4 decades, was captured during a session in which the motorcycle's engine was not running. The shot required the precise positioning of both Stallone and the bike against a specific background lighting condition that existed for a limited window during the late afternoon shoot. Getting the engine running and maintaining it at the correct idle for the camera position and angle required created vibration
that the camera operator identified as incompatible with the extended exposure time needed for the specific film stock and lighting combination being used. The decision was made to shut the engine off entirely, push the bike manually into position, and complete the session with a static, non-running machine. The resulting images show what appears to be a functional, road-ready motorcycle with a rider ready to depart. The exhaust note and mechanical readiness that the image communicates are entirely fictional. Every version of this image that has appeared in print or digital form across the franchise's history shows a switched-off motorcycle carefully positioned by several crew members who then stepped back before the shutter opened. Nobody involved ever found a reason to mention this publicly. Number 2. Rambo's Yamaha inspired a black market replica industry.
Yes, this is the Rambo bike. If you saw the first movie,
That Yamaha spent years fighting within 18 months of First Blood's global release. A cottage industry producing unauthorized replica components designed to visually transform standard Yamaha trail bikes into approximations of Rambo's screen machine had established itself across several markets simultaneously. The replicas originated primarily in the United States, Japan, and West Germany, each market producing slightly different interpretations of the same screen reference. The components range from cosmetic bodywork panels to handlebar assemblies and seat units, none of which were produced with any authorization from Yamaha. The manufacturers involved operated in a legal gray area by carefully avoiding direct use of Yamaha's trademarked name in their marketing, while making the screen connection entirely explicit through imagery and descriptive language. Yamaha's legal department pursued several of the larger operators through the mid-1980s with mixed results. Jurisdictional complications, particularly in the West German market, made enforcement difficult. Several operators simply relocated when legal pressure became serious, re-establishing in adjacent markets where Yamaha's enforcement resources could not follow effectively. The replica industry peaked around 1986 and declined as the franchise's cultural immediacy faded. Its existence was never acknowledged in any official Yamaha communication. The brand spent significant legal resources fighting an association it had simultaneously refused to commercially embrace, a contradiction noted by several motorcycle industry commentators of the period. Number 1. The last surviving original hero. Bike from First Blood was found rusting in a Vancouver salvage yard. The principal hero motorcycle from First Blood. The bike that carried Sylvester Stallone through the sequences that launched one of the most commercially successful action franchises in cinema history, did not end its days in a climate-controlled museum or a private collector's vault. It was located in a salvage yard on the outskirts of Vancouver, British Columbia in 1994 by a film memorabilia researcher who had been tracing the production's vehicle disposal records for several years. The bike had been sold through the production's standard vehicle disposal process when filming, wrapped in 1982, passing through at least 3 private owners before reaching the salvage yard in a condition that the researcher described as advanced deterioration. The custom modifications that identified it as the Hero unit were still partially visible beneath significant surface corrosion. The handlebar assembly, the custom fabricated unit built specifically for Stallone's riding posture, remained attached and identifiable. The researcher negotiated a purchase from the salvage yard owner for a price reflecting scrap value, with no recognition of the bike's provenance. A subsequent restoration process took 4 years and required sourcing period correct components from across North America. The restored bike was authenticated through production documentation and is currently held in a private collection whose owner has declined every acquisition offer received. The most dangerous man in cinema history rode a bike that spent 12 years rusting anonymously in a salvage yard. Nobody thought to look after it. Nobody thought to look. And there you have it. 20 genuinely extraordinary secrets buried inside the most famous dirt bike in action cinema history. Rambo's Yamaha was never just transportation. It was a machine carrying decades of hidden production drama, corporate silence, and survival, stories that rival anything on screen.